You're watching American One.
Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to American One Morning. I am Scott McJunkin.
And I'm AJ Nolte.
And we're here to go through the news with you. We're going to talk about the news real quick. Hopefully start your day off right. Dr. Nolte, how you doing today?
I'm feeling caffeinated. I felt like this morning I might splurge and in honor of one of our stories today, maybe get a cappuccino or an espresso or some other Italian-derived coffee drink.
You're feeling fancy today. You're feeling
well.
That's good.
I want to celebrate the victory of quote unquote fascism in Italy today.
Okay. Yes. That's big news today. I know that someone that's conservative or right wing, shall we say, whenever they hit the political spotlight, automatically it's fascism. It just is. So what's your take on that and what's going on in Italy?
Well, apparently, as far as the media is concerned, somebody who is opposed to immigration, believes in sort of pro-natalist policies, which includes generous subsidies to birthing mothers, somebody who repudiates anti-Semitism and the fascist past of the country explicitly, and compares her political party to the Tories, the Republicans, and Likud, is a fascist. Now, it says something about Italian politics that the quip about Mussolini was, at least he made the trains run on time. And Italian politics is highly dysfunctional. Okay, so if we look at the way this broke down, the fact that it's like the day after the election and it seems like this coalition has a clear majority really just tells you how dissatisfied Italians are with sort of the status quo that they've been getting. The other thing that people don't like about her, by the way, she'd be the first female prime minister of Italy, which, Scott, isn't it amazing how the left, which are supposed to be the champions of women's rights, somehow it's always the conservative parties that get these women elected as president or prime minister, or all these different things. It's the most amazing thing. The champions of women's rights, somehow their leaders are always men, right? Their prime ministers, their presidents are always men. It's the female, it's the right that has, Maggie Thatcher, more recently Liz Truss, Theresa May, 3 female prime ministers, all of them from the Conservative Party.
That's true. I mean, we've seen this over and over again. Even the gains that Trump made within the Black community, all of that didn't matter. Like, it doesn't, like, the left is famous for claiming that some sort of identity is the most important thing. And so if we could just get the person who identifies or is part of a certain group into office, then just having them in office is, a milestone that right. should be celebrated. But we've seen this over and over again. Whenever it's a conservative, whenever it's someone that's right leaning, that values God, family, and country, the person's automatically a fascist. It doesn't matter if they're right. Black, white, gay, straight, woman, man. It doesn't matter. You have to align your political beliefs, and if you are part of that, if you happen to be part of a marginalized community, to put it in their words, and you are a conservative, you are a traitor,
right?
And they are, and the liberals are very quick to be very nasty with their insults, and that's what we're seeing right now. Is instead of looking at what she's done and what she says, they create a fictional fantasy around them. It's almost like, I if someone were to say, hey, a conservative female was elected in Italy, and they said, Scott, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the leftists are going to do? I would say exactly what's happening right now.
Right.
It is not surprising.
Yeah, it's 100% predictable. And look, do I necessarily know if Giorgia Meloni is going to be a great prime minister of Italy? I don't know. Look, I'll be impressed given Italian politics. If she lasts a full 10 minutes as prime minister, that would be impressive. The Italians really, they do change their government on such a regular basis. So, but beyond that, I don't know. But the degree to which our friends on the left, and this particularly is bad in Europe for anybody who might be skeptical of the EU project, right? They're going to throw out the fascist big guns there, right? The fact that they are so epistemically certain, epistemically is a big word for this early in the morning, they have this philosophical, like, innate knowledge that anybody who disagrees with them must be a fascist, right? The predetermined outcome. I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you what I do know for sure is that they don't know either. They really don't know either. And eventually what happens if you call everybody a fascist is when you get actual examples of fascism, people stop listening to you. And so, I don't know. I would suspect that that she is not. And I would like to, and part of the reason that I suspect that is, usually speaking, if they really have the goods on somebody, they will deploy it. But I want to pull out a couple of things that I found particularly offensive as a confirmed Lord of the Rings nerd. I think we may have covered that previously.
Yes, we have.
I think France 24 did a story on this new fascist, quote unquote, prime minister of Italy. And one of the pieces of evidence that they cited was that she previously attended a hobbit camp. Yes, because when I think of
what's a hobbit camp,
I don't know. I would like to find out. It sounds like fun.
Okay.
because for those who don't know, one of the things that's definitely true about hobbits is they have 6 meals a day, and they are they're known for sort of enjoying that, and for almost a kind of like just folksy localist libertarianism would be kind of the ethos of the Hobbit. So very fascist, right? So it's fascinating to me. You've got someone who attends a Hobbit camp, right? And you've got someone who gives a speech that looks like it could be given by, Kylo Ren from the execrable recent Star Wars movies, or even Palpatine, with all the dark red background, right? But of course, our friends on the left are sure that it's the Hobbit fan who's the fascist. And the person who looks like, who has the empire looking thing, they're the anti-fascists, right?
Yes. And I think Biden also appeared at a global citizen festival in New York. Like we have the Darth Vader look, and then he appears and welcomes the citizens of the world, and trying to get rid of any kind of semblance of American culture. No, I see that, but okay, is this a sign? All right, there's 2 points I want to make. One of them is anytime there's the word fascist that comes out, I think it's the quote unquote, as the dog whistle, as the liberals like to say, for, hey, this person is, there are no rules now, right? Like, you call someone a fascist, we're starting to see political violence happen. We're starting to see people really, really just double down on it. It's almost inflammatory, in the sense that some people could get the wrong idea. She is not just someone we disagree with, but she is actually part of the enemy. But is Italy a kind of a bellwether of what's going to happen in Europe, or do you think it's just isolated only to Italy?
I think that there's generally been a lot of dissatisfaction with the sort of Eurosceptic center-right and also center-left parties across Europe. I mean, you think about Viktor Orban in Hungary, who's also been called a fascist. Orban is a complicated figure. I did a podcast on him back for Blind Politics before I joined American One. He's a complicated guy. I'm not gonna say agree with him. I don't think he's a fascist. But you could also talk about Duda in Poland, who I like. I think he's a solid dude. And who's been more leaning in that conservative direction. So I think there is definitely a push back in that direction. Then there's all the craziness that happened in France. I wouldn't say necessarily that Marine Le Pen. I mean, Marine Le Pen's dad. Okay, if you want someone who really, I would say probably, yeah, he's a fascist. Marine Le Pen's dad, Jean-Marie Le Pen from France, he's a fascist. Now, how do I know that? Well, he did show up on the floor of the European Parliament in the Nazi stormtrooper outfit. Okay, so
what?
Yeah,
He actually.
He did. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. And when someone said he was racist, he said, "No, I'm not. I support Saddam Hussein." Okay, that guy is a fascist, right? So just for our friends on the left who are confused, someone who shows up in a Nazi stormtrooper, yes. Someone who goes to Hobbit camp, maybe not. So I mean, I think there's definitely a little bit of a reaction against the European consensus coming. But you know, European politics, it can change on a dime. Italian politics even more so. So I mean, we'll have to kind of wait and see. I would say I'm really curious to see what will happen in the UK with their new conservative leader, Liz Truss. How does she do? And what happens in the UK with their next upcoming election? And that'll probably tell us, because if the Tories win again, then I would say, yeah, there's a bit of a backlash against the left, and it's starting to happen more Europe-wide.
Well, instead of talking about your European quote unquote fascist, let's go on over to American socialists and talk about Biden and latest polls that are coming out. I know that at American One, and ladies and gentlemen, if you made it this far with us, please go ahead, check out American One. Also like and subscribe to this video if you want more content like this. I would say that so there's a poll that came out, and it showed that the majority of Democrats, nearly 60%, do not want Joe Biden. And of course, as conservatives, we're kind of like, yay, you know, Democrats see the light, right? Like they know that he's as bad as we've been seeing. There's a recent video that's out there that shows Joe Biden. I mean, I think it happened this weekend. He was speaking at an event, and it looked like he got lost on stage again. And I've lost count of how many times our Joe Biden has you know, just been lost wherever he is. But the 60%, that makes me think, okay, Joe Biden probably won't run again. I personally don't think he will. And now they're looking at Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom scares me, honestly. I would much rather have Joe Biden. If we're going to have a Democratic president, I would much rather have Joe Biden than Gavin Newsom. What do you think?
I would much rather have Joe Biden than Gavin Newsom as president. But I could not come up with an election that would better contrast the conservative and progressive views of government and governance than Gavin Newsom versus Ron DeSantis. Because it's just like, you know, they're the epitome of the two coalitions, right? They're the perfect representatives of the current Democratic Party and the current Republican Party. You know, Ron DeSantis, you know, kind of more of a downscale background, works his way to Harvard, you know, goes into the military, governs in sort of a conservative fashion in Florida. Gavin Newsom, you know, the political scion of Democratic family powers, and like, you could not get more of a perfect picture of the elitist white progressive than Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is the presidential candidate that Democrats deserve. And then the question is, if he's the nominee, though, Republicans have to present a candidate who is a contrast to him. So I think actually DeSantis is the best contrast to Newsom, just because, first of all, it's clear they don't like each other. And second of all, it's a clear contrast of, hey, these are two guys who governed during very different states, but in a very similar time period. And so we can really get a contrast for, like, honestly, we might actually have an election that's about things if it's between those two, where there's actual policy disagreements, as well as just stylistic differences. So I would kind of be down for that argument, and for that election if that's the one we get. But Scott, I got to tell you, I just don't know if Gavin Newsom is going to make it through a Democratic primary. In the age of hyper woke intersectionality over there, Gavin Newsom actually really is a privileged white male. And so it's hard for me to see him making the sale. And then there's another factor for Newsom, which I think is important and people underestimate. There is a pragmatic streak in the Democratic primary electorate that's really, from South Carolina on, African-American voters aren't necessarily going to pick the most progressive candidate. They're going to pick the candidate they think that has the best chance of winning in the Democratic primary. They're the ones who gave Joe Biden the victory in 2020. Are they going to line up behind, you know, elitist liberal Gavin Newsom? Or is there somebody else who can sort of consolidate that segment of the party, and then, you know, really go from there? So I think a Democratic primary without Biden is fascinating.
It's fascinating. I think that getting Biden off the ticket, now Democrats don't really have to claim inflation anymore. They don't have to.
Right.
They don't have to have that as part of the election dialogue. And then also Newsom, if we're talking about you said stylistic differences, I would like to see the compare and contrast about Newsom's hair gel that he uses that this dude is still using in 2022, and no one around him like thinks it's a good idea. Like no one around him is telling him, hey bro, like lose the hair gel. But
Yeah.
beyond that, I think like seeing Newsom, and you said, do you think that Democrats will get behind it? I believe Democrats will get behind it because I don't think Democrats really would care. The independent voters would be the people you would have to sway and have that conversation with. But I think Gavin Newsom is probably like the wet dream for Democrats. In all honesty,
except there's a grenade that somebody's going to have to walk down and defuse if Joe Biden doesn't run. Which is if Joe Biden doesn't run, and you're the Democrats, and you said everything is about racism and sexism, literally a noun, a verb, and racism and sexism is your explain for everything. And you have an African-American female vice president, and instead of picking her, you pick the white male governor of California, who's the scion of political dynasty, right? That is going to be, I mean, Kamala, if she's, and I'm not going to say she's a good politician because she's not, but you'd have to be an absolute knuckle-dragging idiot to not be able to make an immense amount of hay out of that if you're her. And so I think that's the thing, that if I'm a Democratic strategist that's giving me night sweats right now is, okay, if Biden's not the nominee, how do we not nominate Kamala Harris? Because they know she's a train wreck. They know that her political skills, she's just not a good politician. She's just not good at this. Honestly, and I'm not a big fan of her from a policy perspective, but they'd have been better off picking either Val Demings or Stacey Abrams, because either of them actually has a modicum of political skill. And Kamala's just bad. She's just not good at this. But how do they not nominate her?
I would, if I had to answer the question right now, which I'm trying to do just off the cuff, yeah. I would say that if Biden isn't going to run, then it wouldn't be that it would be framed in such a way that Biden is stepping down rather than he's not being chosen. And in fact, maybe the Democratic Party goes as far as publicly choosing him, but Biden just says, hey, for personal reasons, I got to go, but I hope the team stays in place. I think that would be the more palatable thing. Like Kamala still is the vice president. We're just going to have another guy. But what you're saying is if Kamala is not going to be chosen as the front runner,
right?
She absolutely cannot.
No.
She has worse poll numbers than Biden.
No. Yeah.
And she's awful. And you said something about Stacey Abrams. Did you hear about Stacey Abrams saying that the fetal heartbeat is not real? Did you hear about that?
Well, like, the party of science, Scott.
Party of science. Yep.
I really don't understand why Biden didn't pick Demings. I even said that at the time. She's only a member of Congress, but if you're committing to picking a black woman, she's a former police chief, right? She neutralized the defund issue for them right away, and she was not as Looney Tunes as some of these other folks. But they decided to go with Kamala because I guess they couldn't pass, and they just really needed to solidify those electoral votes in California.
They really did, and because she has the police background, I mean, you got to remember that the election was going on during a time when the Democrats were really doubling down on that thing, on defund. So she couldn't, right?
And that was so dumb. I mean, just absolute political malpractice to not realize how out of step they were, and how nominating, picking her as their VP would have solved issues for them. But we are not in the habit of giving good political advice to the Democratic Party. It's more fun to watch them implode on their own.
And I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now before our eyes in real time. And we're seeing this play out not just here, but also around the world. And this is the problem. Whenever your philosophy is mainly built on things that don't make any sense at all, eventually it crumbles. And that's one thing I love about conservatism, is because we have different points of views. We don't get it right every time. However, I think on a fundamental level, we try to stick with rationality and truth. Yeah. And if that's the underpinning thing, then you can win every argument. But this is not this new Democratic Party 2.0 that we're seeing. I don't see it lasting like through the scrutiny of just time, you
Yeah.
know, and just letting these arguments play out. So I'm fascinated with what you said about DeSantis and Newsom, and I kind of look forward to that. That would be a really cool debate of ideas.
Yeah, it would. And I think it's one, you know, it's advantage conservatives, certainly. If you ask most independent voters, would you rather live in Florida right now or California? I think the answer becomes pretty clear. And I think that that's an argument we should relish. I mean, we've gotten so focused on personalities, both us and their side. It would be good to actually have an election that is about, okay, here's our philosophy for how we run things. Here's your philosophy for how we run things. And let's figure out which one we're going to go with.
And voters will have the ability to do that coming up here. Not too long. How many more weeks we got? How many more weeks?
So we're what? Maybe 6 or 7 weeks out now. We're about to start.
Weeks.
We're about to start October. Yeah. So no, not even that long. Holy bananas! I think we're 6 weeks out. Yeah. Yeah, 6 weeks out.
6 weeks out, and we'll finally be able to see just what the voters think about the referendum on Joe Biden. Really, how his administration has gone. And there's, in the political world, 6 weeks is almost an eternity. Anything can happen. So I'll be interested to see the news stories coming out.
Absolutely.
That's all the time we got for you today here at American One. As always, Dr. Nolte, it's good to I'm glad that we were able to do this.
Absolutely, Scott. Pleasure to be with you, and thank you all for watching and for listening. Remember, stay caffeinated, stay conservative.
You're watching American One.